You're listening to the Shipyard Cat Podcast, the unofficial SAFC podcast for fans everywhere.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the pod. We're here today to bring you our preview on the up-and-coming game against Brentford back at home. We've got just a bit of housekeeping tasks to run through as well with yourselves, so everybody is up to date with everything all Sunderland. Unless you read the news, you'll already be ahead of us. Joining me to discuss this, we've got Robin and we've got Kev. Robin, how are you doing today, sir?
Yeah, good. Looking forward to the journey up this weekend. See you two at the stadium again. It'd be great. All good. Just hoping we can, work on the positives from the West Ham game and forget the negatives from the Burnley and Huddersfield games.
Definitely, mate. Definitely. And likewise for yourself, Kev, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. Obviously, like Robin's just said there, really looking forward to another home game. Hopefully we're able to continue the home momentum and kind of get over the bump in the road that was obviously Burnley away, really.
Indeed so. Let's kick off the pod then this week in regards to the news that came out today, which was Chris Rigg signed a contract extension, which is great for all parties. He signed a 5-year deal, which is huge for the lad, and that obviously will see him through to 24, 25 years of age. That in itself is a statement by Rigg. Do you guys agree that the fact being he's had suitors elsewhere, we know this, those up the road apparently wanted him, then other teams like, I believe it was a Liverpool, your Man United wanted to bring him in and do that, but one, the club stood firm, and two, he himself has went, my club is Sunderland, I'm staying with Sunderland.
Well, look, to me, first and foremost, it protects our asset. I know I've said it before with Trey Hume. It automatically means that if someone wants to buy him, they're going to have to pay top money for him. Because it's a 5-year deal. He'll have had a substantial pay increase from his first deal last year, etc. It's good business by the club. I think that's the way we've got to look at things. There's been interest from other Premier League clubs, from other top European clubs, but realistically, you've got to think, well, if he did go to Liverpool, so to speak, or Arsenal, or say Chelsea, for the Premier League clubs, then at the moment those clubs are bigger than us. You can't argue that. But is he going to get any game time there, or are they going to buy him and send him out on loan? To me, I think he's not going to get much game time in those sort of teams. So I think he's realised that, and what's the point of him taking, I am going to say, a sideward step to the likes of Man United, who obviously struggled last season, got knocked out of the Carabao Cup by a League 2 team. Yeah. I know we lost to a League 1 team on penalties. However, when they made their substitutions, they brought on all their big hitters that they've got. And plus as well, they started with an £80 million man up front in Sesko. It's... there's no point taking a sideways step within the Premier League, I'd have said.
Yeah.
Is he a bit too young to experience international football? To me, someone that age, yes, I know Job's done it. I know Jude did it before, and I think they're the exception. I know we tend to get a lot of players that come into our country at that sort of age. Obviously, we brought in Myenda, etc. To a certain extent, Trey Hume coming over from Ireland. However, for those lads, the language isn't an issue. I think for a young English lad going abroad and having to learn the language, I think it's just another complication in a thing. So for me, he's done the best thing for his own future, his own career, and also it's the club as well. We're protecting ourselves.
I think it's a good move for the lad. You can always get tempted by the big moves away. There are some players that will do that. They'll chase the money and hope to get that step up. But, if you watch the interview that Riggy's done, he even says he knows his minutes are going to be limited this season. But it's about basically saying, I'm here when you need me, Gaffer. And, being at that level that when he is needed, he's the first substitute to go to rather than, the third or fourth choice. If he goes to the likes of Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, he's not getting on as a substitute until probably the fourth, fifth pick. The lad's under, well, what is it, the under 21s he's playing for, isn't it? The England lads. He's probably wanting to put himself out there as much as possible so they start considering him for the senior squad. I know he's only young, but there will come a point where, someone makes a decision of actually he's good enough. And for him, he's local, he's staying local. He's probably looked at it and thought, I'm in the Premier League. This club's done a lot for me. It's my turn to do a lot back.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's a win-win for both parties. But
no, and I'm in complete agreement with you both there. You both covered off some great points there. One of the things for me, what is the telling of it, is the fact being similar to what you've just said there, Kev. He wants to stay in the northeast. He hasn't chased the money. He hasn't chased the big money move to a more wealthier Premier League club, shall we say, likes of your Arsenal's, United's, Chelsea's, and stuff like that. Where he might end up with probably his double, triple his wages what he's on now, but he's turned on. I'm enjoying where I am. I got my. He broke 2 records last year being in the Championship. I think the most goals from a youth player, and then obviously he got rewarded with other stuff. Or did he tie with Bale?
I think he did beat the Bale record, didn't he? But the main thing is for him, and we'll talk wages if you want, but we're not shy of spending them. It wouldn't surprise me if Riggs actually on very, very good money now.
Mm-hmm.
And it might actually show some of the other players that are umming and ahhing about contracts what the club are all about. Because look,
indeed,
the lads probably don't know to the penny what each other are on, but they will talk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, Riggy's new contract's worth a fair few quid to Riggy, but the likes of your Sirkins, your Dan Neils that are umming and ahhing potentially about contracts.
Yeah.
It could be what pushes some of them to actually say, I'm going to stick with this journey as well.
I mean, that's the one for me, Kev, is Dan Neil. He's the one that he's only got a year left on his contract. He's in the final year of it, so to speak. And, we're hearing nothing from the club. We heard rumours that it was going to be soon. But, it's an interesting one that we're tying up these other players. And yet Dan Neil either doesn't think the contract that we're putting in front of him is worth as much as what he values himself, or his agent has done that thing and said, look, don't sign it. In a year's time, you're free. You get a massive signing on bonus somewhere else. I mean, it's a risk.
Yeah.
Because, the lad might not play much football this year at all. And then who's going to want to buy him?
Exactly. Yeah. That's the other catalyst in when you don't sign your contract. Let's go on to what we're mainly here for then today, and that's obviously the build-up for the Brentford game. Robin, you alluded to right at the introduction there of can we carry on the momentum from the West Ham game, because there's a lot of positives to take from there, and I think that's what one of the things Reggie's will do. He will use the positive sides of that. I think what Reggie's does quite well as well, in regards to when you said there about obviously try and get rid of the negatives from Huddersfield and Burnley. We've seen in the past, especially in the Championship, he uses those negatives as a positive at the same time to say, this is what you've done wrong. This is where you can tweak it and then go, right, do this better. Do we see that? Obviously, yes, it's going to be. Sorry, go on.
That's what his job is. At the end of the day, that's what he's there to do. He's there to pick up on what's not gone right and make it right. The biggest thing to me is going to be the crowd. The crowd have got to perform like they did against West Ham. They've got to get behind the lads. They've got to make it a fortress. They want it to be an intimidating place. Brentford come from a 20,000 little community stadium, down at the G-Tech. Yeah, they've done well to do that. But it's not an intimidating atmosphere. They're probably, for them, a lot of them will want to tick off the stadium night as well in the Premier League, because let's face it, they had a lot of fans only join them when they went into the Premier League. All throughout their, League One and League Two days, and then in the Championship. I know. One of my mates was a season ticket holder there. And he was lucky at times, he said, if there was 5,000 people there. So a lot of them people probably haven't been at the Stadium of Light, will want to come and experience it. And we just got to make it as intimidating as what we can do. Yeah, I mean, they've got players that have played at other stadiums and stuff, but we want them to fear the Stadium of Light.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what I think played in our favour massively with the West Ham game. We were loud, we were noisy, we were irritating. You really didn't hear much of West Ham until we actually went a little bit quiet, probably in about the 30th minute, where the fans probably felt, well, which way is this going to go? Because you got to remember, all pre-season, all we've heard is, oh, the three promoted clubs will not win games. Oh, the three promoted clubs will struggle. Oh, the three promoted clubs are the easy points. So, of course, 30 minutes in, when it's 0-0, I think all the Sunderland fans went, wait a minute, what's going on? Why? where are all the pundits now? So, yeah, that's obviously when West Ham had a little bit of a sing-song and tried to really get under our skin. And it didn't really work because I don't think any of the players were really bothered by it. There was no real traction to it. Obviously, we went in at half time, and that's when we switched things on. And I hope that's kind of how the Brentford game goes. I hope that we've got an opportunity here. Well, hopefully, we actually start doing something in the first half, and we don't have to wait to half time. But if we can go in at 0-0 at half time, it's one of those where people from the outside looking in are going to be looking at it, going, Sunderland aren't actually a pushover.
I want to touch on something there, Kev. Actually, you reminded me. Obviously, the West Ham game. Obviously, when they split from the handshakes, we automatically went to, the Roker end where we'd always go at the other end. And I noticed against Huddersfield, Dan Neil actually won the toss and turned us around.
Yeah.
So maybe it's something that we are going to start doing, is changing the way we're kicking in the first half, so that in the second half we are attacking all of our fans. Rather than, traditionally we've, gone away from the Roker end and the noise. And we've been attacking the other end, mainly, I don't know, possibly because that's where the away fans used to be situated, in that bottom corner. Obviously, but since they've moved them upstairs, and maybe the club's had to think about this and go, hang on a minute, let's attack our own fans where they make the most noise, because that's going to be the most intimidating thing for any team. If we're willing that ball in the back of the net and the noise is up, because whenever we're attacking, it goes up another level. And for goalkeepers and defenders trying to communicate, it could prove difficult. So maybe it is something that the club's looked at, because it was just an interesting one, because I think we were all slightly confused in the first game, when we just went to that end straight away. We'd never done that before in our life, sort of thing. But then, like I said, I mean, we certainly did win the toss, and Dan Neil did turn us around. So, yeah, very interesting how that's going to pan out throughout the season, I think.
No, I see exactly where you come from on that, Robin, because you could see it in the lads themselves when they went over to, say, take a throw in, or whether it be a corner. They just pumped the crowd up, and the crowd got behind them, and it was just deafening. Just like, that's what you need week in, week out at home. You need to get the lads G'd up, and it does wonders for them. And you can see then it just gives them that lease of going, you know what, we're here, we're proud to play for this shirt. Let's kick on and prove that performance. Obviously, in relation to Brentford, we know Brentford are a tricky customer. I don't think they've had the best of starts this season compared to what they've had last season. But nevertheless, as you mentioned there, Robin, before, they are now an established Prem team. We can't really count them out regardless of if they've had a bad run or not.
Well, I don't think we can count anyone out. I mean, I think we probably went into the Burnley game with the wrong attitude because obviously their result and our result, and they
Mhm.
probably thought, hang on a minute, we're a better team, we're better players than what they were last year, and like we said in the preview for that, it does look like they'd weakened their team rather than strengthened it, and yet during the game it looked the other way around, so I don't think any team's going to be a pushover. The only thing with Brentford is they are obviously going through a bit of a transition. They lost
Mhm.
quite a few players. They brought players in, maybe not at the level that they've lost. Obviously, you got Johan Visser, who's sort of on strike because he wants his move away. Obviously, you got the return of Jordan Henderson, whether or not he'll, where he features is starting on the bench. Who knows? Yeah, I mean, it's one of those early season. It's really difficult to tell
Mhm.
what teams are going to come and what because Keith Andrews is fairly new into the job. I don't think anyone expected Thomas Frank to go in the situation that he did. And
Mhm.
the players leaving that they have done. Yeah, with a team like Brentford, you are going to lose your best players because
Mhm.
you need to balance the books, etc. You are a selling club. It's a bit like Bournemouth, bit like Brighton. They'll get these players in and then move them on at a vastly, inflated price to balance the books out and keep themselves running sustainably. So, yeah, it's always tricky the first few weeks to see who's going to turn up and how these new players are settling in. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously we've seen our players, so we've known with the pre-season etc. how they've been doing. But look, I'm not going to turn around and say that I watched their pre-season matches and their results and how they got on.
Mhm.
Because let's face it, none of us have got time to do that with every single team in the league.
Yeah, exactly. So, I, in relation to obviously teams and stuff like this is where I want to bring you in, Kev. Obviously, we know Ballard, as we mentioned on the last pod, there is out into the Palace game. Seal, to me personally, will come straight in to the fold to partner with Aldrete. Do we see any possibly other changes? Would you like to see, say, Seal possibly rest a little bit more just to make sure he is fully 100% and bring in like a Masuaku, Ukiele?
I mean, yeah, for me, I think Silk does naturally fit straight back into the squad because of the injuries potentially.
Mhm.
Um, it's who you're going to partner with him to replace Ballard, if that makes sense. It's hard. I do think Alderete's probably a guaranteed starter as well. It's a real challenging lineup at the moment because we're still finding who's best for which spot at the moment.
Mhm.
You got to think the lad from PSG, Mukiele, he hasn't come in to just make up the numbers in the squad. He's come in because he wants to be a first team starter. Um,
Yeah.
it's just for me, is it too soon in terms of lack of match fitness, lack of sharpness for the Premier League? I saw an interesting thing on, I think it was the Echo, saying they were, we actually missed the likes of a Luke O'Nine because he was just a
Mhm.
default. He fits there, that'll do, and put someone with him. Um, yeah, we are lacking. For me, we are lacking a little bit of match fitness in the back at the moment. Hopefully, the midfield and the attack can do enough to kind of keep the defense quiet, our defense quiet.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, you've got to think at the moment. We're thinking Huggins could be out at the moment with an injury because he picked that up at the Huddersfield game. Um, Mundell, obviously, we know that's probably October, November, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hielder, Sirkin, Ballard, Elise, these are all injuries. Like they're all players that we don't
Mhm.
necessarily kind of go to as a first choice, but respectfully, and Robin, I'm sure you've got something to say on this. We need to make sure the likes of Harrison Jones aren't brought on as a first choice because that would show to me we've really undershopped in the window. We've spent this much money, but we're still lacking players to go
Yeah,
to. That would be a worry.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, even though Silt's done really well, I
Mhm.
think that Mukiele will come into the team for Ballard, hence why he was taken off. To give him a bit of a rest. You don't want him playing the full 90 minutes, etc. Whereas Masuaku did. I think that was the interesting one. Masuaku needed the minutes, where I think they're managing the minutes for Mukiele so that he will get 90 minutes out of him if needed on Saturday. So I think that will come in. Obviously, Hume will come back in the team. Ronaldo will come back in the team. Look, he'll make the changes again. It will be, the 11 changes or 10 changes, because so I fully expect Mukiele to start in place of Ballard. The interesting one will be, when it comes time for the changes, do you bring Wilson on for Adingra instead of putting Lefay out there and, use Lefay and Rig, etc., for Diarra and Siddiqui type substitutions. Obviously Patrick Roberts, different play when he went back onto the right hand side. So yeah, he'll come in for for Talby. I expect Talby will start. Obviously, he offers us something different. And this is the thing: the players that we brought in do offer things differently to what we had last year. They're quite happy to go down the wings, put the crosses in. Obviously we saw Mark Guiu's goal from across the other day. We want to try and get Mayenda in there as well. Mayenda obviously hasn't got the height that Guiu has, but he scored a header against West Ham. Ballard got a header against West Ham. So the style of football and things will dictate a lot. And obviously it depends on, Brentford setup as well. Like I say, Keith Andrews, he was their set peak coach. So we know that they're going to be up for stuff. But if we can win the headers like we did against West Ham, was it 9 out of 10 duels in both boxes? If we do that, and look, Mukiele is just as good in the air as what Ballard was, all from what I saw him the other day. Adingra looks solid. So, yeah, I mean, there will be, I think that, there'll be wholesale changes again compared to the Cup team.
Yeah, definitely. You covered something that I was going to touch on just before, so I'm not going to really. I'm just going to gloss onto it just briefly. When you mentioned about, obviously, the likes of, say, Dingra needs to come off, would possibly Wilson come on, and then likes of, say, Siddiqui and Diarra, if they need a rest, bring on the likes of Riggy and Enzo light on in replace of them. That make to me at the minute, based on what we've seen and what Regis has pretty much touched on in regards to Wilson, that makes sense. Those whole changes, to be fair. Other than that, lads, I don't think there's really otherwise much to cover. Kev, you give me an evil look. What have I missed?
Nothing. Like I say, I think it's just, one of these moments where you look at, is it too early to say this is a 6-pointer?
It's one of. It's going to be
that's
one of those.
That's just me throwing devil's advocate out there, really, to kind of, I suppose, a conversation point for you lads and our listeners. This is one of those teams that we said at the start of the season we probably need to be competing with these guys later on in the season. Here we are, match day 3, game week 3, if you want to put it in the terminology that's used in the fantasy Premier League stuff. But yeah, for me, these are your banker games. These are the games where you want to go and get your 3 points because look, the transfer window closes in like 3 days.
Yeah,
that's the crazy thing. So realistically, this game coming up at the weekend is your last chance to see where am I lacking, what do I need to improve on, and what can I go and get in this next 3 days. There's still fans online saying we need another centre back. Well, Lucimi, however you want to pronounce it. Robin will correct us in a second. That deal's dragged on forever.
Yeah.
Bologna is saying, well, we're happy to let him go now if we can get a replacement in time. Sounds very similar to a club up the road. We're happy to let you go. Oh, look, we couldn't achieve it. It is potentially what's going to happen, isn't it? There's fans saying we still need a left winger, right winger, cross player. And everyone's saying, well, we should go for Bakwa. Or is it Mikadudzi? He's been mentioned a few times this window. Georges. And again, do we need that? Have we got enough in what we've got? And then there's still people saying they want an experienced striker. Well, the window for those is closing. Obviously, Danny Ings has just signed for Sheffield United. there's still fans online at the moment saying we need 3 decent incomings. I mean, I would love your thoughts on that, lads. Do we need more players, or are we all but done in the window?
For me, touching on two things. First of all, in regards to additional additions, I would say possibly one or two, but at the same token, I think we've possibly got enough to see us through. I think we should be solid. In regards to what you were saying before, though, the main one I wanted to touch on there is what you mentioned about whether we can count this as a 6-pointer. Looking at performances of West Ham, I would say that's definitely going to be a 6-pointer going forward. And in relation to this, I would say looking at it, yes, because the fact being, obviously after this week we're going to international break, and I would be quite happy taking 6 points out of 9. Don't know what about you boys, but that's, to me, I'd be over the moon with that for the first Premier League season back.
Yeah, I mean that's a great start, isn't it? For anyone's team, a great start is 6 out of the first 9. But yeah, it's a tricky one. Do we bring more in? I think we've had a lot of changes already. I do think we need another striker. I really do. But whether or not you'll be an out and out striker or someone that can play on one of the wings as well is another thing. We do like to have our players that can play in 2 roles. But I do think that's the most important position that we really need to fill now. Purely because of Mundle's injury, and question marks over Paddy. Paddy's been injured a couple of times last few seasons as well. You don't want to risk players going down. Yeah, defensively, I think the players who've come in do look strong. However, Sirkin, Elise, 09, Ballard, Huggins again, all injured is not a good look. It's too many players in the treatment room. Centre mid, I think we're strong enough there. I don't see anyone else coming in there. I think you're then going to start upsetting people by bringing in even more. I think what's more important now is the likes of the outgoings. The likes of getting young Trey Ogunsui out on loan somewhere. He signed his new deal the other week, which we touched on. Him going out on loan to get him some minutes. The likes of Alan Brown. He came to us last season, experienced player, that bit of experience we needed in the Championship. But, I mean, that's what 11 seasons he's played in the Championship. If he was good enough to take the step up, someone would have done it already. So he probably needs to move on, I think, to go to a team that's wanting promotion from the, Championship, whether or not it's the likes of Birmingham or Wrexham that have come up, or the likes of a Southampton and Ipswich, Leicester that have gone down already, or even likes of Sheffield United that haven't started the season well, or Stoke or somebody like that. He needs to move on. I think, yeah, Harrison Jones, needs to go out on loan somewhere, get him some minutes in his desired position rather than keep playing him out of position. There's some lads there. I mean, we can't weaken the unders. They've still got their competitions to play as well, etc. But obviously the likes of Paveda, he's coming. He's not really done anything. We keep forgetting we've got him. Just move him on. It's, to me, he's one of those. No one's going to want to pay money for him, so just terminate his contract by mutual consent and let him go free somewhere else. There's players. Obviously, Hamir's gone out on loan. Obviously, we've got Abdullahi, which I think needs a loan. Don't forget, there's still. I mean, I haven't kept up to date, but you still got like Pembele, Abdullah, the likes of these players, which they're not going to play for us.
Yeah. Indeed.
At the time when we brought them in, we were buying that potential, but they're not at the level that's required. So I think the next few days, I think the club are going to be more concerned about maybe moving 6 or 7 out the door rather than getting 1 or 2 in.
Yeah, indeed. No,
I just threw some random in there, and it just it seemed to work, didn't it? I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? There's a lot of outgoing still to be done. Hamir's
Mhm.
got a loan move.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it, isn't it? Out of that squad that you've just mentioned, Abdullahi's rumoured to be getting somewhere this week, isn't he?
He's rumoured to go to Angers, and Trey Augustini is rumoured to go to Scotland.
Good moves for him. Bit of
Mo-
physicality, a bit of
For,
game
for
time.
me, for Trey, I see it more than likely being an Aberdeen again or a Hibs.
Yeah,
Well,
potentially. We seem to have got a good relationship with Hibs, but you've got to think outgoings. What have we lost so far this window? Obviously, Triantis has just gone.
Yeah.
Jensen Sealt's, an and an R. Well, right now, I don't think it's worth letting him go because we probably need him in and around the squad. Yeah, Abdullah Bar, Pembele, Pervada. Let's just admit they weren't what we were. Look, if we were still in the Championship, there's probably a place for them somewhere in and around the squad. But in the Premier League, they're not. They're not even gonna get on your bench. Like
No.
move them on, clear the wage bill, get rid of them. I think the big problem with Pervada is he's rumored to be on high wages.
Yeah.
So you've got to find a Championship club or somewhere in Europe that's going to take him. Look at Sam Greenwood. I know it's a really random one to throw in there. He's just ended up with a random move to some Polish side,
Yeah.
and that'll probably be a little bit of high wages. And they want to try and increase their profile for in the footballing world. So maybe that's where the likes of Paveda goes. He ends up and finds himself somewhere random. But
Just touching on Pavard ever so slightly, though, the good thing about Pavard, what I do like, it's not that he's wanting to sit on the bench and not do anything like a Rodwell type player. He wants to try and play football. He wants to try and prove himself. He wants to somewhat better himself. Yes, he could do with a haircut because I think he's trying to mask his inner Julio Arca from years ago with that lovely barn that he's got currently. But it's not for the lack of trying. If you watch him in the unders, he's actually given a decent account for himself. He's trying. And I think one of the big things that have hampered him or trying to push on was I think his confidence has possibly gone completely and injuries didn't help. That I think that is the big thing for Piveda. It's we got him, yes, injured and broken. We wanted to try and help him, which we did. We got him back to his somewhat fitness, and then he went out injured straight away again. And then, as we've also said in the past, he's then just been thrusted in the unders. There you go, deal with it.
it's not just that, I don't think, Alan. I think that's a bit harsh the way you're saying it like that to him. I think the fact with Pervader is everywhere he's been injured and broken.
Hmm.
He's just one of those players that seems to be injury prone. As opposed to him thrown in the unders, you've got to think he's still young. He's
Mm.
sort of, he's eligible to play for the under 23s. It's not like he's one of the overage players and we're chucking him to get him minutes.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that he seems to have been around a long time because I think when he came through at sort of Arsenal or something, he was like 16.
Hmm.
So I think it's more that I think we're a bit harsh on him, but yeah, he's not good enough for the Premier League.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many times that the so-called top clubs, if you release a player, get it wrong. Obviously, yeah, Mundell was at Tottenham, but it was him that wouldn't sign the contract.
Yeah. Exactly.
Ballard was at Arsenal, but it was him that wouldn't sign the contract.
Yeah.
You know, um, it's not a case of it's when you release from these clubs, it tends to be a sort of like, yeah, you're not going to make it at the very, very highest elite level.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, what we'll do, lads, we'll wrap it up there for this week, which has been phenomenal as usual with you lads. Let's get a quick prediction, and then we'll end everything there. So, Kev, I want to come to yourself first, there, matey.
just a 1-0 for me.
Okay, no
Yeah,
problem.
no,
Robin,
I can't go over it. I just at the moment I'm still captain cautious.
fair enough. Go on, then, Robin.
Yeah, I'm sort of erring with Kev as well a little bit because obviously I don't really know what Brentford have got to offer. I don't think it's going to be a high score, but I think we'll get a couple. I think it'll be a 2-0.
Okay, and this is where you guys will laugh at me because I'm saying 3-1 personally. I think we've got something about us. If the crowd gets on the lads' side again and pushes us through, I can see another couple of decent goals and get a third along the line. I think it'll be a nervy scare because they'll get a goal, and then we'll be able to just see it out with another goal. I don't see us keeping a clean sheet against this Brentford squad, sadly. But other than that, lads, much appreciated for joining me as ever. So nice one, Kev, for joining me.
Pleasure as always, mate.
Nice one for you, Robin.
No, thank you, Alan.
Perfect. And everyone else, thank you very much for listening in. Just remember, you can find us Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And as ever, we'll see you on the next one.